Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to bring the November Support Services Committee meeting to order. I'll first entertain a motion to approve last month's minutes. Motion made by Supervisor Ben, seconded by Supervisor McGowan. All in favor? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right, since Amy was the first one here, Amy, we'll start with you with self-insurance.
Okay, thank you. My first item is a resolution request to approve a new contract for chainsaw safety training as part of our self-insurance safety training program. This would be with Bill Lindoff from ProCuts. This is an annual. We've been using him for a few years. The fee is $900 per day plus travel. For up to 10 days of safety training, we kind of gauge this as we need it and as the participants request it. The fee is always paid from the self-insurance fund.
Motion by Supervisor Leggett, second by Supervisor Sokol. Holy moly, the turkey has gotten to my brain. Discussion, please. Supervisor Leggett.
Thank you.
Amy, this has been a pretty successful program.
It's wildly successful. It's by far our most popular class. We've been doing this 3 years, perhaps. You may recall in July, last July I was here getting more days for the fall. So I started out with 10 days this year, for next year. But yes, it's by far our most popular class. It's hands-on. If you have any town employees that haven't taken it, make sure they get in it. I know, Mr. Leggett, your guys have taken it. You've hosted it up in Chester. Very well received.
Amy, let me ask you, Cornell Cooperative Extension offers a course, but this is for county employees and town employees?
Cornell offers a classroom course, and I've actually talked with Jim up there to see if they could offer, or we could work together, and their grant won't let them do this hands-on course under a grant program. But yes, they do a classroom course. This is a hands-on. Everybody cuts a tree down, or cuts more than one at times during the class. It's outside.
Thank you. Supervisor Wild, you had a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I just did. Amy, is there anyone local that can do this? Or is this
There is not. This is the game of logging, which is kind of a franchise kind of deal, and they have trainers. Like there's a trainer in Vermont, there's a trainer in Massachusetts, there's a trainer in Maine. Bill is the New York trainer, and he's very hard to get, actually. He does all of the New York lumbermen and all over the state.
Supervisor Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In event that a program or a class is canceled, are we still responsible for any fee?
I don't know that he has a cancellation policy. We monitor these very closely. If in any of our classes, we do 40 to 50 safety classes a year. If they're looking like they're not going to get a good response, we cancel them early.
Okay, so...
I don't know that he has a cancellation policy. I've honestly never worried about it because we have a waiting list. He only takes 10 people per class.
Okay.
And we've actually done it long enough now so we have folks that want to come back. You know, it's that good.
Great.
It really
Thanks.
is.
Further discussion, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Okay.
Next.
My next item is kind of a housekeeping. A couple years ago, we had a resolution to do independent medical exams. Warren County Self-Insurance, like all other carriers, has the right under workers' comp law to send injured workers to an independent medical examiner. For the county auditor to process the bill, she needed a resolution authorizing us her to do that. With everything, medical costs go up, independent medical exam costs go up, so I'm just asking to increase the not to exceed limit from $7,000 to $10,000. I don't think we're going to get anywhere near that amount in a case in a year, but in case we do need it, we need it now. We don't have time to come back to the board and get an extra okay to pay for it. And as I said, it's allowed under the workers' comp law. The workers' comp law gives us authority to have these exams. This is just keeping the auditor happy so we can pay for the exam. So I'm just asking to change that.
Okay, motion made by Supervisor Leggett. Second? Anyone? Supervisor McGowan? Questions? Supervisor Leggett?
And what are some of the, have we had any cases this year or in past years?
We have not had any cases this year. We had a case brewing that I thought we might hit this, and I can't discuss particulars, of course, on the record, but the issue got resolved earlier this week.
Okay.
But it just highlighted that, oh my, this might become a problem in the future. I don't think we're going to ever need it. We're not going to get that close to it, but this is typically a case that's very special. It's something unusual. An air quality case. We get those from time to time, where you need a specialist, and those specialists, have very high prices attached to them. And like I put in my note, we look at these, my adjuster, myself, in my office, we make sure every dollar we spend, we can justify and it makes sense, that it's going to save us more than spending it. And that's really what independent medical exams do. They help encourage the best care for your injured workers, but they also make sure we're on the right path with them and doing the right thing to get them back to work. It's a tool in our toolbox.
Further questions, discussion? Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Supervisor Sokol.
I'm sorry to do this, but I just noticed that going back to the last request was for $900, and the resolution for 2017 shows $850, but the one in 18 shows $850 as well?
Yeah, and his fee went up $50.
Right, but
Yeah.
it didn't get changed.
Okay. My form didn't get changed? No, my request got changed, but there was 2 resolutions for 18, because we authorized a few days at this time last year for the spring, and then I came back to the committee. So there's 2 resolutions that I attached there just for your reference. They were both $850 a day. He's increased his price to $900, which is still $280 less than the quote that I got from everyone else.
So there's going to be,
There's going to be 1 resolution for 10 days, where last year there was 2 resolutions, 1 for 6 days and 1 for 4, I believe is what it was.
No, this is the resolution to increase the number of days from 6 to 10.
That was for this current year.
but this one says January 1st, 2018 to...
Right, and I'm looking for 2019 authority.
Okay, so there's going to be another you don't have the resolution in your packet for the
You don't have
900?
that resolution.
No, I have a request form on page 2.
Oh, I didn't even see that, I'm sorry.
Page 2 is my request, and
Okay,
then
I'm good.
3 and 4 is the
I'm
similar
good.
from
Yes, yes.
current year.
Oh,
Thank
to
you,
pay
thank you.
him.
Yeah,
Okay, my bad.
yeah.
So our
Yes, the fee
resolution,
went up $50.
our resolution covered all 3, or
Yes.
just the request form, because resolution 500 and 331 for informational purposes only.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, next one, Amy, please.
Are you ready for number 3?
Yes, please.
This is the hard one.
Yeah.
I brought with me Mike Hutcherson from Rose and Kiernan. Those of you that might have been here last year at this time would recall we've been with Lee Pollock in Rose and Kiernan for many years. Lee is retired and enjoying his retirement now, I'm sure, and Mike is his replacement. So I've been working with Mike, in the county attorney's office has been working with Mike since January, I believe. So this is our annual insurance renewal. We, throughout the years, surveyed what the county has, have insurance in place over it, and then I come to you every year with this is what your insurance is going to look like next year, and to get your authority to pay the bill. So the
Excuse me, Amy, just for a second. Could we make room at the press table, please? Thank you, Amy.
So what I'm asking for in this resolution is authorizing the payment of the county's whole insurance program for 2019, not to exceed $950,000. It's paid from various departments and is allocated out to them in a very detailed spreadsheet based on several different criteria. It might be their budget, it might be the number of cars they have, the property that they, have, their buildings and whatnot, or the type of coverage, such as law enforcement is paid by the sheriff. So this is our renewal. It starts on page 7 is my resolution request, and we request to pay all these various companies through Rose and Kiernan. And like I said, it's divvied up amongst all sorts of departments, several departments. Starting on page 8 is the survey that Mike's office prepared that just shows you the limits, the deductibles, what the premium was in the current year and what it is going forward in their commissions. I think what is of great interest is on page 12, and that's really, you're always interested in what the increases are, and some of these programs went down. And I'll actually let Mike jump in and discuss that with you. And also this year we have a big increase in our total because we purchase pollution coverage every 3 years. That's $82,000 every 3 years. So that makes the total not to exceed go up a little more this year. So Mike, do you want to talk about
Sure.
the premium increases?
Sure, absolutely. And by the way, appreciate very much having the opportunity to work with you and be the successor, I'd say, to Lee. Hard to ever replace Lee, but we appreciate the opportunity to continue to work with the county in this regard. And Amy's been great. What we do each year in the renewal process is that we do evaluate all the exposures. There's a lot of collection of data from each of the respective departments, make sure that we keep updated on the current exposures and any that may have changed. So specifically to the increase, when you're looking at the premium increase, it resulted predominantly from few factors on it. And I would just preface this that last year, when at the renewal, we were fortunate to be able to provide a savings of $105,000 last year, because at that point in time we marketed it and went to other carriers. So we are up this year, when you're looking at true apples-to-apples comparison, about $32,000, albeit the pollution liability is a separate item of the 82 because it wasn't included. But what's driving that increase, in summary, and we've kind of listed those for you, is that the county, and it has some additional exposures, which is great. I mean, a very robust county and operating. As you look at it with regard to the property limits increase from around 106 million to 123 million. And that's a result of the new courthouse addition and the railroad properties. So we've had an increase in exposure in that particular area for the property insurance to protect those valued assets. Also in general liability, we had an increase of about 12%, and that resulted from, we had 2 claims, in total about $50,000 of reserves set up for those. One was an allegation involving improper road, involving a motorcycle accident, and the other was a trip and fall on the sidewalk. And so that increased your general liability, because what the insurance carriers, you well know, will do is that they factor those losses in and come up with an experience rating factor and then increase that factor a bit. Inland marine, again, back to the railroad crossings, as a result of, we increased our leased and rented limit of $1 million for equipment, that we now have additional equipment. So that's covering, again, the physical assets that the county has adopted and increased. Law enforcement liability went up a bit as respects the addition of the school resource officers. I think 8, Amy, right?
Yes.
In that regard. So an exposure, an active new operation of the county, so that is adding to the premium increase. Auto up a little. We have 5 more vehicles since last year's renewal in that regard, and then our airport liability is up a bit. That's not unique to Warren, County of Warren. It's that's a result of just the aviation industry as a whole, with incidents that have occurred that have driven the rates up a bit for the aviation sector for the commercial insurance there. So, in short, that's what the contributing factors were to the bottom line premium this year. But again, also don't want to minimize the fact of the review in the process that Amy's office does in conjunction with ours, and make sure that we have assets and exposures of the county currently insured in several risk management programs throughout the year.
I'll entertain a motion to get it on the floor, please. Motion made by Supervisor Wild, second, Supervisor Hogan. Discussions and questions. Supervisor Wild.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. A couple of questions. When we did the resource officers, I'm not sure if we totally understood the impact that the insurance was going to be on that. So can we break down the number of resource officers and the cost per officer?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's already been given to the sheriff's office. Do you remember, I want to say,
It's about, the law enforcement liability increased about $2,500, so approximately $300 in premium, as far as premium, approximately $300 per
yeah, I
officer.
think there was a much higher that was attached to that, but I'd have to send that to you, but it was provided to the sheriff for the purpose of allocating it out.
And I just had a second question in general. For these annual premiums, do these go to the budget of, like, the airport,
Yes.
highway?
Yes.
They're responsible for these?
Yes, there's a very detailed allocation chart where anybody that's, not every department, but like the airport pays the airport liability, that goes directly to that budget. DPW pays a large portion, like with their vehicles and whatnot. Public health pays their health
So,
liability.
for example, on page 10, they're talking about crime and local development corporation, it's only $262. But I'm just curious, does the LDC pay that? Does that get transferred
I
over
believe
to
that
them?
is billed, Amanda, to your budget, right? Do you back charge that?
No, we pay out of our budget.
You pay that out of your budget?
Whatever's on your sheet.
Yep, okay. Yep. Pretty much everything that we could allocate out, we did years and years ago. It's been the same process. And if it made sense not to allocate it out, Amanda's budget pays it.
Further questions? Supervisor Leggett.
Thank you. Could you describe this difference in conditions? Because that has $1 million deductibles on it.
Yeah, what that does is that in the event that you have specifically flood and quake in that situation, is that it steps in, and provides additional protection above and beyond what your current coverage is underneath. So the $1 million detention that's included there is because in the underlying coverages, property coverages, there's $1 million of coverage for flood and quake, and then it steps in on top of it.
Okay.
So while you're right, it looks like a sizable deductible, which it is covered with the underlying property coverage.
And describe more of the pollution insurance.
Yeah, on the pollution liability in conjunction with underground storage tank, pollution liability tanks. So typically what you see, property contracts will exclude any type of pollution that's not immediate or accidental discharge, and a lot of times they'll even exclude that. So what you have to do is purchase a separate coverage. A lot of times you may have exposure to exclusion over a long period of time, where you have leakage, corrosion of tanks, or things of that nature, and then it provides protection in that instance. So over an extended period of time when you identify it at a later date. It's not a byproduct of any sudden and accidental.
Wish we had that.
Further questions? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. That's it, right?
Yeah,
Thank you very much, Amy.
Thank you. We appreciate the business. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we'll go to County Clerk.
I'm happy to see the public.
Pam, good morning.
Yeah.
That was a relief.
Morning, how you doing? Yeah, I can pass it on.
Sorry I'm late.
For you guys?
Thank you.
Congratulations on passing those down. Oh,
What? One more.
Congratulations.
I think they're all just single sheets,
No,
right?
we didn't.
Oh, yeah?
We didn't adopt the budget this year.
Really, you did? By
They wouldn't even,
By default.
by default, but they didn't even show up. Unbelievable.
Do we have administrator that will go to county?
Oh, sure.
We adopted jail Siemens budget. That's the one.
Morning, Supervisor
I don't think I got anything offline.
Good morning.
Go ahead, Pam. Good morning.
Okay. We have two items on this agenda today. And the first one is to allow the county clerk to submit a local government records management improvement fund grant. We had done one last year, so I came before this body last year, right about this time, this meeting, in anticipation of submitting in January. It had been a long part of my history with the county to do programs of this nature in my past work as well as my ongoing work. So we submitted last year, and I just want to also note that that project is well underway. It is going extremely well, and we will meet, I'm confident, our projections on it. The way that there is a cycle to these things, to this grant program from New York State Archives. So for the 2019 year cycle, I am proposing that, I will submit again. I would like to submit again. A similar, again, we're looking at case file management of records stored, long-term records in the records center that we house. So we kind of, and the analogy last year is, in prior years, when we go back, we might, to accommodate, we would be buying shelving, more shelving, more space to put records on. And now it's a digital conversion world. So, so I would like, to be allowed to submit. It's a January submission. The date is not set yet. But the writing time for me will occur in January. So, and the resolution request is on the back side of this, of the agenda. And I also provided the sample reso for the county attorney to work from for that. That's
Okay,
my
motion by
request.
Supervisor Leggett, second by Supervisor McGowan. Questions? Supervisor Leggett.
Thank you, Chairman. Pam, so this takes care of some of your employees' times, or is it all equipment?
This is, the grant itself will be, the digitizing is outsourced to a vendor, to our vendor that actually runs the rest of the office. So in our contract with them, we have optional services, film to image, paper to image, off-site storage. There are certain things that go above and beyond the regular contract. So that becomes a basis if we were to be awarded. And then, of course, these images will be uploaded into the county, into our county system.
Oh, okay.
So there's, in this grant, I would not be including, any paid salaries. Okay.
Okay.
That would have to be from outside. We do provide within the clerk's office, kind of an in-service. We will use any spare hand to do certain tasks at any time. Okay. But this one will be an imaging contract. In the end, we will still engage in all of the various financial processes that are appropriate to us.
And all that effort will still work within the human resources that you have?
Yes, we are, right now, our staff is set.
President Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Pam. Is this an all or nothing grant application? Is there a possibility that you could receive or be offered half of the amount?
Yes, of course. That's never happened with Warren County.
Is that right? Wow, it's happened to me a ton of times.
But again, and that would be up to us. So, example, this year, I submitted and received $61,000 to convert 450,000 pages.
Okay.
Okay. And so, but say they were very, short, and they said, we think we're going to offer them 40, and then it would be the decision, would be made. Can we accomplish what we need to accomplish?
Yeah.
when you're talking about images, well, if I can't do 450,000, can I, what can I do with this money? Can I make it work? But it's going to be a smaller number.
Good. We'll keep our fingers crossed. Good.
Yes,
Thanks.
we always do. We always do. We've
Great.
been pretty successful, but we'll see.
Okay, thanks.
Further discussion? Supervisor Hogan, yes.
This is archiving that would not happen if you don't have the grant.
We would not be able to afford to do this on our own. We would not have the manpower. We would not be able to do it. We would not have it in our budget. If I wanted to put it in, I would have to put it in separately into the budget. I'd have to add it.
Other
They're
questions?
important words, but it certainly is quite a bit to ask of adding an additional 60,000 to the already, the county clerk's budget or the public records budget. Modest in that. This allows us, the Records Management Improvement Fund does allow counties and municipalities to engage in records management activity, important activity, that they may not be able to do under their own resources. So, it is important.
Supervisor Wild.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Pam, I think I mentioned this before, but now I'm sensing the magnitude, 450,000 documents. I've scanned stuff before and had to rescan things before. So I'm wondering, what do we do for quality control? And then, in addition to that, my second question is, what do we do with the paper when we're done? Is it discarded, is it shredded, or do we still keep that as backup?
Okay, first question, there is a verification process that goes with this, and this is what our own staff will undertake, okay? It will take us time to do it. When, in the world of microfilming, when we did that, it took us 7 years to get to a point where we could dispose, okay? With the verification process is the same type of process that occurs every day in the county clerk's office, because we're imaging every day as well, our daily work. So so that process is a one-to-one, so it's looking at every image to make sure we've captured everything or it's been captured. Okay,
So those 450,000,
all we look at again.
you looked at them all last year, or you will over the years?
We will this one before we complete.
Okay.
So when the verification is complete, then the next move will be to look at the disposition according to retention schedule. And it's also, part of this is also to engage the department that, that these records will be able to begin to look at them in a digital format, and basically will set the foundation for them going forward ultimately in a digital world. So,
Further questions? Okay, call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Number 2.
thank you very much. It's kind of fun to talk about records management. It is my home away from home. So every once in a while, the county clerk does need to go to the archives. Yeah, very good. Okay, the second item on this agenda, of course, is the local mortgage tax. It's been something that you've been apprised of through the budget process. You are aware that the local mortgage tax is, has a renewal cycle and also expiration. In this case, it does go down on November 30th. You've also been apprised that the legislature, the county did its work. The county board submitted the proper paperwork throughout the course of this year, 2018, to prepare for the renewal process that would be done by the state, the legislature. It went through different parts, but it did not get fully approved to be renewed. So that is something that has been looked at very carefully, but it is now the time. And notification went out to the county, the clerk of the board, on the 20th, received on the 20th, that effective December 1, the county would not assess or collect the local mortgage tax. The local mortgage tax stays here, okay? You're familiar in your own town budget with what we call basic tax. But there are other mortgage reporting taxes out there that we collect besides basic. There is additional, which long-standing, that's permanent, that doesn't expire. That is collected, and that stays with the county. And then there is, starting in 2008, what we call the local mortgage tax, and that is renewable every 2 years. And that also stays with the county. So when you're looking at the county clerk's budget and you're looking at 1256 mortgage recording tax, what you're looking at is the additional tax and the local. Okay. It is the local, which is 0.25%, that is going, expiring on November 30th. So we have to be prepared for that. My initial intent when I was kind of drafting up this brief agenda was just to, basically say that the cycle has come and this is where we're at. We've collected about $800,000 in local tax so far this year. From January to October, $903,000 actually of just local. November, as of this morning, approximately 80,000. Okay, but December of 2018, we would not, as of the way everything stands right now, we will not be collecting that local tax. We
And when I
have
asked
that.
you a question, you did note here that, aside from what you just said about December, that our budget committee proposal and our approved budget has taken this into consideration for 2019.
Yes, there
2019.
was quite a bit of discussion with our budget officer. The county administrator is well aware of this. The county attorney is aware of this. Nothing that Warren County, your office, my office, any office did. We recognize that it is an important factor, as do our own legislature. But something happened in the process, for whatever reason, we are now facing this. But we did our best to address it, but certainly address it in the first quarter of the year. Our efforts not take into consideration to lose anything for the full year by any means. So I think today, both the county attorney is here. So that's kind of our updates. We've gotten letters. We've now got the notice that we will expire on November 30th. We are in the county clerk's office doing what we can do to provide public notice. Website, state taxation and finance put it out on Monday. Notification to the bar, notification to reporting title people coming into the office. It is anticipated that it will, when the legislature reconvenes, that these 4 counties that were affected will, these will be approved. And I believe at this point, I would turn it over to the county attorney and the county administrator to address an action that you can do to perhaps help this along.
So the timeline on this is we have a notice from the Department of Taxation and Finance that we need to adopt a local law, an additional local law beyond what we already adopted earlier this year. That local law, once it's adopted, needs to be provided to the Tax and Finance Department 30 days in advance of when it would go into effect. So what that means for our timetable here, we could accelerate our traditional timetable if we wanted and provide 10 days notice for a public hearing. But if we'd like to keep with standard procedure, what we would do is we would introduce the new local law at the December board meeting. We would adopt the new local law at the January board meeting. and that would give us 30 days to almost the end of February. And the notifications that we've had from the state legislature is that they will work on a bill that will allow us to impose that tax effective March 1st. So if we, hoping that the state sticks with that time frame, and we want to stick with our normal schedule for how we introduce these things and schedule the hearing, then the time to introduce the local law would be now. We have drafted a new local law. It's the exact same verbiage as the local law that the Board of Supervisors adopted earlier this year, other than the fact that it changes the title to Local Law Number 2 of 2019. I believe the initial local law was number 6 or number 7 of 2018. So it changes the title to Local Law Number 2 of 2019, and it just it keeps the expiration date at December 1st, 2020. If the state should allow us to go beyond December 1st, 2020, we would simply do an amendment to the local law once we know what date we're allowed to continue the tax to. And regarding the beginning of the date, I'll read the paragraph to you. Initially, wherever I'm going to say March 1st, 2019, the initial local law that you adopted said December 1st, 2018. So the new paragraph would say imposition of the tax for the period commencing March 1st, 2019, or a subsequent date enacted by state law and ending December 1st, 2020. That's essentially the change. We updated December 1st, 2018 to March 1st, 19, or such additional date as enacted by the state. So we have to introduce the law, we have to adopt the local law, and then once we have a bill from the state, Senate and Assembly, we would have a resolution requesting the adoption of those bills, the home rule resolution. So those are the 3 steps, and if the committee is willing to move forward with introducing that local law, we'll stick to our normal timetable and look to adopt it in January.
The resolution?
We do.
The resolution? Motion for the resolution made by Supervisor Leggett. Second, Supervisor McGowan. I have a question. Why do we have to do this?
Because the state told us we had to. Yeah, we have a letter from State Taxation and Finance, which I'll read to you. It says, please be advised that if and when tax law section 253W is renewed, the county will need to enact a new local law imposing the tax.
Thank you. Other questions, comments? Supervisor Leggett.
Is this subject to permissive referendum, the local law?
I don't believe so.
No.
Other questions? Okay, Supervisor Leggett.
No, this is for, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. Basically, right now, the additional is 1/4% that, and the local is 1/4%. So without the local, we're cutting our mortgage revenue by half, aren't we?
Over the course of the full year, yes.
Supervisor Beatty.
Frank, you did budget though, correct? Anticipating a loss of revenue from the mortgage tax not being passed by the Assembly?
Yeah, we're okay until April 1st. After that, we are.
And just for everybody's understanding, the amount of dollars we're talking about that's being impacted is, if it was for the whole year, is how much?
About 900.
900,000. Okay. Further discussion or questions? Okay, the motion to add Supervisor Leggett, Supervisor Hogan?
Well, just to be clear, so it's a loss of somewhere around $240,000 if we're looking at December, January, February. And
we're over for 2018 already.
And just out of curiosity, I know that the legislature didn't deal with this. Do we have any idea why? What was the other bill?
Rent controls or renting or something in New York City. I'm not sure what, but it was because it was tagged to another bill.
So do we have some relative confidence that this can and will be dealt with?
If I could, the state Senate leadership flips next year, so there's a lot of unknowns associated with that. We're going on what we're hearing from Senator Little and Assemblyman Steck, that as well as the other county clerks all around the state have been on this issue with their legislators, the ones that are affected. We're not the only county. There's a handful of counties that are in the same position as we are. And the message that we've all gotten from our state legislators is that the goal is to get legislation passed early next year that stipulates March 1st. If that doesn't happen, then there's a possibility it could go into the state budget, which, as you know, is due on April 1st. That's why we budgeted for revenue after April 1st. That had been presented to us as worst-case scenario. But the answer to the question is we just don't know. It's going to depend on how the new leadership of the state Senate wants to handle the issue.
Is there something we should be doing to be a little more proactive in this?
I think that I wasn't here the first quarter of last year, but I imagine that when the state budget comes out, we have resolutions advocating for the county's positions on hot issues in the state budget. So if this legislation hasn't gone and been adopted by then, I would think that we would run that through the legislative committee, and we would advocate for that with resolution.
Supervisor Watts?
Yeah, just a quick question. Could we ask, pardon me, we ask Assemblyman Stack and Senator Little to make us whole on this in terms of what our losses are, because this is just a few counties out of the whole state that got caught up with this.
In terms of just an appropriation, state appropriation payable to our general fund, we can ask.
Before I call the question, I'll just point that while this is a loss for the county budget, it's a gain for all the taxpayers who can put that now money invested in our other events in the county. So any further questions, discussion? I'll call the questions. The motion is made by Supervisor Leggett. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay. All right, thank you, Pam.
Have a wonderful holiday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have two more parts to our agenda for all those in the supervisors and public who came for the personnel and following finance. I apologize for the delay. We should have scheduled more time, but alas, here we are. We'll now move on to County Administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If anyone doesn't have an agenda, I have an extra copy here. We have two requests that deal with their budgetary requests. The first is to transfer from our contingency account that we set up for unsettled contracts in 2018 to transfer those sums, which is $159,200, into the sheriff's budget. The reason we would do this is this is the PBA contract that's out at interest arbitration. We're not going to get an interest arbitration award before the end of the year. We have, however, been engaged with the union on some potential settlements outside of that interest arbitration process. Frankly, I don't feel confident that those negotiations are going anywhere, but to the extent that we can get them going and have an agreement signed by the union before the end of December, the treasurer's practice is to pay out the retros in the year that the contract is settled. So by transferring this money out of contingency into the sheriff's salary and fringe lines, it'll give the treasurer the ability to do that without blowing the sheriff's budget. In all likelihood, what's going to happen is we won't have anything before the end of the year, and we'll be coming back early next year for a fund balance appropriation. This $159,200 will fall back into fund balance, and we'll simply reappropriate it next year so that when the interest arbitration award comes down, probably January, February, we will then be able to do the same thing, transfer from contingency into the sheriff's budget lines to pay out the retros. And we will, at that point, have 2 years' worth of retros. As you know, it's all in the... it'll be a 1 year and whatever amount of 2019 that we run into. So that's this resolution.
I'll move 1, 2, and 3. They're all transfers, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, do I have a second for that? Second by Supervisor Leggett. Discussion and questions? Supervisor Leggett.
Again, Ryan, this is in anticipation that there is a settlement before the end of the year.
It's in the event that there is a settlement. In all likelihood, there won't be, but if there is, then we'll be stuck and we won't be able to pay it out the way we typically do without the sheriff's budget going into the negative.
And,
Supervisor Leggett.
and then the county administrator, the 48,000.
Yes. So the first transfer, the $1,600.11, this is to get our part-time salaries back up to where it will be. The reason is we had Joanne McKinstry's retirement. She stayed on to help with the transition. We had unanticipated costs for her to do that in the part-time salaries. This will make that part-time line whole. It'll give us an additional $200 if we need her for anything before the end of the year. I don't think that we will. We may invite her back for a Christmas lunch. But the other piece is to fix up our 110, our regular salaries. That's for, initially, this budget included the reduced salary for Mr. Garrity. When you hired me, it was at a higher salary, so we have to move funding into there. That would come out of contingency. This is for, obviously, this will be moved down to finance, but just to give you an idea of where we're at right now, we budgeted $275,000 in contingency. We've used $157,000, leaving us with $117,000 balance. We have a request already on from mental health for $35,500 of that contingency to deal with the transfers to the Marcy Institute, where there's when an inmate is incompetent to stand trial, the mental health department has to pay for that. They go to a state facility. So that's $35,500 plus this $48,500 that my department is asking for would leave us with a balance of about $84,000 in that contingency. And I believe Treasurer Swan has a request for somewhere under $2,000 of that. So I don't believe that there will be any additional contingency requests for this year. So it'll leave us with north of $80,000 in savings.
Further questions?
Thank you.
I'll call the question. 1, 2, and 3, actually, is in the motion by Supervisor Sokol. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. That's it for county administrator?
That's all. Thank you.
That's it. Next section is county attorney. Part of that will be executive session, but we'll start with the open portion. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning. My first request is to renew the contract with Bartlett, Pontiff, Stewart Rhodes. They currently do all of our labor relations, which includes all the union negotiations, any disciplinary matters we have here at the county. Their contract expires December 31st, 2019, and we're asking to renew it for a year and then have 3 additional one-year terms as an option in that as well.
Motion by Supervisor Leggett. Bring it to the floor. Second, please. Supervisor Driscoll. Discussion and questions. Supervisor Leggett.
Thank you, Chairman. We discussed this a lot last year as well. It seemed like it was a good value to do it by the month. Do we have a total of is there any way to compare if we had done it any other way?
So it's a flat fee of $3,750 per month, which comes out to $45 flat a year. We did get, not as organized as I wanted to be, we did get an accounting of all the hours that Larry had spent for 2017 and 2018. And he did that based on his hourly fee of $180, which is also in the contract. If he were to do anything that wasn't under the contract, that's the fee he would charge us. So just based on that hourly fee and all the hours that he put in under the flat rate, it came out to be $95,000. So that's the comparison that we have. And I do just want to mention that the bifurcation of the alliance did take place. So now the county is going to have one more union that we're going to have to negotiate with, and Larry did keep his price flat. He did not raise his price for that extra union.
Further questions, discussion on this motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. 2.
The second item on my agenda also goes along with the second discussion item. I don't know if you remember, but in July, the board approved an extra position for my office, and this was the title searcher / real paralegal. We have posted this position for a very long time now. It's still presently posted. We have not received any applicants who are qualified for this position. No one has the title searching qualifications that we need for this. So because of that, we now had to issue an RFP to actually do those abstracts, because we usually send the abstracts out November 15th to start for the 2019 foreclosure. So we did send out that RFP. We will be opening those bids on November 29th. So I'm asking this board to allow me to award the bid to the lowest responsible bidder and also ratify a contract with the chairman. And the reason I'm asking for the ratification is we're already 2 weeks behind, and I don't want to have to wait till December 21st to do the contract, because then we'll be 4 weeks behind.
Mary, may I ask a question? What's the definition of responsible?
There is no definition for responsible, but it usually is linked to if there are other reasons that you wouldn't pick the lowest bidder. So maybe quality of work, or I know the board's done it based on location before, if someone's within the county or outside of the county. My intention would be to pick the lowest bidder. I'll put that out there for you.
Discussion or motion to get it to the floor? Motion made by Supervisor McGowan, second by Supervisor Leggett. Discussion and questions from the committee.
Do we know how many bids have come in yet?
I don't know.
Who controls that process?
Julie?
Okay. So who opens the bids?
Julie will open the bids too.
And who makes the decision?
Our office does.
Other questions?
Julie prepares the whole matrix, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Supervisor Hogan?
How did this sneak up on us?
I don't think it has snuck up on us, but go ahead, Mary.
It didn't sneak up on us. I was just hoping that we would be able to hire someone, and I couldn't. Just no one had that abstracting experience that applied.
Within the past several weeks, with help from the treasurer and the real property department, we've expanded the search into the Paralegal Association. We've done a whole lot more in terms of trying to find somebody who's interested in the job. We were hopeful that that would turn up an application or two of someone who is qualified to do the work, but it hasn't. We believe that the reason for that is that the state wanted this to be a competitive position that would require an applicant to sit for the exam for a legal assistant, which is not necessarily an easy exam, and that may have scared off applicants, which is, something that certainly wasn't anticipated when this position was created.
You will recall while this position is in the county attorney's office, filling it is of great interest to the county treasurer. Any other questions? Committee? Anyone else? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
The last item on my agenda, there are 3 pieces of litigation that I will need board decisions on. So I thought this might be a good opportunity to give the board an update on all of the litigation with the county. So I'm going to start the litigation update in public session, but when we get to the 3 cases that we need a decision on, I will ask to go into executive session, if the committee is okay with that. The first case against the county is Sassy versus Warren County. Plaintiff alleged violation of his constitutional rights while an inmate at Warren County Correctional Facility. This case has been assigned to Johnson & Laws, which was formerly Lemire, Johnson & Higgins, and this is a case that's covered by insurance. Defendants, the county, made a motion to dismiss, and this was granted on October 20th, 2017. This was granted without prejudice, though, so the plaintiff was allowed to amend his complaint. He refiled in November of 2017. A motion for summary judgment has been fully submitted as of August 9th, 2018, and we're just awaiting a decision. Dickinson versus Warren County, another civil rights action in federal court alleging that he was discriminated based on his physical disability while an inmate at the jail. This is also assigned to Johnson & Laws through insurance. Defendant's motion for summary judgment was granted in August of 2018. Plaintiff did file a notice of appeal to the Second Circuit. However, as of today, that's not been perfected. Joshua Stegman versus Warren County. Plaintiff was arrested and indicted for multiple drug-related crimes in April of 2013. While he was an inmate, he filed a complaint in Rensselaer County Supreme Court in 2014, alleging numerous claims stemming from his arrest, including unlawful search and seizure. In respect to Warren County, he sued many counties. He alleged that the county's K-9 officers participated in an unlawful search of his property. After commencing the New York action, he didn't serve all the named defendants, so all of the defendants made a motion to dismiss for lack of jurisdiction, which the court granted. This was also appealed to the appellate division, and that was upheld. In 2015, while he had the pending New York action, he commenced an identical action in federal court. The federal court dismissed the federal action against some of the defendants, but not all of them. He has filed a notice of appeal for the dismissal against Warren County, but he does need to wait until the entire case is dismissed to perfect that appeal. So we're just waiting for that to be done. McNulty versus Warren County. Plaintiff is a former county employee. She's alleging unlawful workplace discrimination and retaliation. This is also defended by insurance counsel Johnson & Laws. A motion for summary judgment was filed on May 8th. We're still awaiting a ruling from the district court. Christopher Hansen versus Warren County. This was commenced in state court alleging battery, false arrest, false imprisonment, and negligence under state tort law and 1983. This is also being defended by Johnson & Laws, which was assigned by our insurance carrier. Motions for summary judgment were fully submitted on August 24th, and again, we're just waiting a decision from the court. And Hubert versus Warren County, we were served with a summons and complaint alleging that the road was not adequately marked, and alleging plaintiff was injured when his motorcycle hit a cut in the road, which caused him to lose control of his motorcycle. This is also assigned to insurance, or assigned to outside counsel through insurance, and it's currently in the discovery phase. So I have 3 more cases I'd like to discuss, but I would like to go into executive session for those.
A motion to go into executive session. Motion made by Supervisor Leggett, second by Supervisor Cowan. All in favor? Aye. We're now in executive session.
What's that?
A lengthy discussion, but no decisions, motions were made in this executive session. However, at this point, I would like to entertain a motion to address the case of Travis Whitehead against Warren County. The motion is to settle for expenses of Mr. Whitehead. Motion made by Supervisor McCowan, second by Supervisor Leggett. Discussion? Proper motion?
Yes.
Covers it? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. And that's it for support services. Thank you very much, folks. A motion to adjourn? Supervisor Wild, Supervisor Hogan, second. We are adjourned. I assume your affirmative votes. Thank you very much.